All right, let's get into it. Political development, it sounds like something your poli-sci professor says to sound smart, right? Like it's intentionally vague. But here's the deal. Broken down. Think of a country like it's a really, really complicated iPhone. Political development is basically the process of upgrading its operating system. You're not just changing the wallpaper. You're building a system that doesn't crash, that's secure, and that all the apps, that's us, the people, can actually use without it blowing up. It's about moving from a chaotic, might makes right situation to a stable, organized, and fair system where things actually work for everyone. Not just the dude at the top with the biggest army or the fattest bank account. So what does this upgrade actually look like? It means building institutions that are stronger than any one person. Think about it. In a fragile state, if the leader gets a cold, the whole country sneezes and falls apart. In a politically developed nation, the system keeps running. The legendary political scientist Samuel P. Huntington put it perfectly. He said political development is all about the institutionalization of political organizations and procedures. Translation? It's about creating rules and organizations, like courts, parliaments, and election commissions, that are so solid, so respected, that they can outlast any politician, any crisis, any scandal. It's the difference between a government run on vibes and one run on a constitution. This isn't just some abstract academic idea. It's the line between a country where you can start a business without bribing 10 different officials and a country where you can't. It's the difference between police who protect you and police who you need protection. Political development is about creating predictability and fairness. It's about ensuring that when you vote, it actually counts for something. It's about building a state that serves its citizens, not the other way around. This process is messy, it's slow, and it almost never moves in a straight line. But it's the single most important journey a nation can take to go from simply surviving to actually thriving. Ultimately, political development is about legitimacy. It's the government earning the people's trust, not demanding it, not forcing it, but genuinely it by being effective, fair, and accountable. When people believe the system works, they participate in it. They pay their taxes, they follow the laws, they vote. When they don't, you get chaos, corruption, and instability. So, yeah, political development might sound boring, but it's the software that runs our entire society. And when that software is buggy, we all feel the lag. It's about making sure the government has a good user interface, and the user is. So how do you actually build this thing? What are the essential ingredients for a solid political system? First, up strong institutions. I'm not talking about buildings with fancy columns. I'm talking about having a parliament that actually writes and debates laws, not just a rubber stamp for the president. It means having courts that can tell the most powerful person in the country, not "you can't do that," and make it stick. These are the pillars that hold up the whole structure. Without them, you've got a government that's as stable as a Jenga tower in an earthquake. The whole point is to make the rules of the game more important than the players. Next, you need political participation. This is huge. A government can't be for the people if it's not the people. This means more than just holding an election every few years. It's about citizens having real channels to make their voices heard. This could be through voting, sure, but also through protests, joining political parties, or even just yelling on Twitter. Political scientist Lucian Pye argued that a key part of development is the expansion of popular participation. When people feel like they have a stake in the system, they're more likely to support it. When they feel ignored, that's when you see unrest and people looking for radical alternatives. It's about giving people a seat at the table. Then there's the rule of law. This is a non-negotiable. It's the simple yet revolutionary idea that no one is above the law. Not the president, not the police chief, not the CEO of the biggest company. Everyone plays by the same rules. This is what separates a democracy from a dictatorship. When you have the rule of law, you have a predictable and fair society where rights are protected. When you don't, you have a system where power is arbitrary. As the World Bank often points out, a strong rule of law is directly linked to economic growth because it creates a stable environment for investment and business. Nobody wants to invest in a place where a government crony can just snatch their factory. Finally, you need stability and good public administration. A country can have great laws and high voter turnout, but if it's constantly on the brink of a civil war, or if the government can't even manage to pave a road, what's the point? Stability doesn't mean no disagreements. It means having a system that can handle disagreements without falling apart. And good public administration, or bureaucracy if you want to use the scary word, is the engine that makes the state run. It's the people who collect taxes fairly, run public schools, and make sure the water is clean. Without a competent, non-corrupt civil service, even the best-laid political plans will fail. Let's look at some real-world examples. Case study number 1, India and Pakistan. It's the ultimate sibling rivalry. Born at the same time in 1947, they started from a similar place but took wildly different paths. India, for all its chaos and complexity, has managed to build a remarkably resilient democracy. It's the world's largest. Elections are a massive festival-like event. Power has been transferred peacefully between rival parties time and time again. This points to a high degree of institutionalization. The Election Commission of India is a beast, a powerful, independent body that commands respect. This has been the bedrock of its political development. However, India's OS is still buggy, big time. While the institutions at the national level are strong, challenges like corruption, sectarian violence, and a slow-moving justice system are major issues. The rule of law can feel inconsistent, especially for minority groups and the poor. Political participation is high, voter turnout is often impressive. But the quality of that participation is another story. Politics can be dominated by personality cults and identity politics rather than substantive policy debates. So, India is a classic case of successful political development on one hand, but facing massive hurdles on the other. Now let's swipe over to Pakistan. Same starting line, totally different race. Pakistan's political development has been repeatedly derailed by military coups. The army has been the most powerful institution in the country, constantly intervening in politics and stunting the growth of democratic bodies. This has created a cycle of instability. When democratic governments are repeatedly overthrown, they never get the chance to build legitimacy or experience. As a result, political parties are often weak, centered around powerful families rather than strong ideologies or policy platforms. This is what Huntington would call a lack of institutionalization. Despite these massive challenges, it's not all doom and gloom. Pakistan has shown signs of democratic resilience. The country has had periods of uninterrupted civilian rule, and its judiciary has, at times, shown incredible independence, even standing up to military leaders. Civil society and the media are vibrant and vocal, constantly pushing for more accountability. But the core problem remains: the imbalance of power between civilian institutions and the military. This makes long-term political stability incredibly fragile. Pakistan's story is a powerful lesson in how the dominance of a single, non-democratic institution can hamstring a country's entire political development journey. Let's fly over to East Asia, South Korea. This place is the glow-up of the century. In the 1960s, it was a poor agrarian country ruled by a military dictatorship. Today, it's a global economic powerhouse and a vibrant, high-functioning democracy. So what happened? South Korea is a textbook example of how economic development can fuel political development, but only when the people demand it. For decades, the authoritarian government focused on economic growth, creating a highly educated and increasingly wealthy middle class. But that new middle class wasn't content with just having money. They wanted a voice. The turning point was the 1980s. Massive student-led pro-democracy movements rocked the country. People took to the streets demanding free elections and constitutional reforms. And guess what? It worked. The military government eventually gave in, leading to the first free presidential election in 1987. Since then, South Korea has built strong democratic institutions, a respected constitutional court, and a culture of accountability. Presidents have been impeached and jailed for corruption. This shows that the rule of law is real and applies to everyone. South Korea proves that a country can transition from authoritarianism to a stable democracy, but it requires both economic progress and a population willing to fight for its rights. Now for a more recent and more complicated case: Tunisia. This is the country that kicked off the Arab Spring in 2011. A street vendor set himself on fire to protest police corruption, and a nation rose up. They successfully overthrew their longtime dictator, Zine El Abidine Ben Ali, and embarked on a path toward democracy. For a while, Tunisia looked like the lone success story of the Arab Spring. It drafted a new, progressive constitution, held free and fair elections, and saw peaceful transfers of power. It was a beacon of hope in a turbulent region, but Tunisia's journey shows just how fragile political development can be. The country has been plagued by economic stagnation, high unemployment, and political infighting. The democratic institutions they built struggled to deliver tangible improvements to people's lives. This created a deep sense of frustration. In 2021, the president, Kais Saied, suspended parliament and seized broad powers, effectively rolling back many of the country's democratic gains. Tunisia is a sobering reminder that building democratic institutions is only half the battle. If those institutions don't deliver economic and social progress, they can lose their legitimacy, leaving the door open for a return to authoritarianism. So we've seen what political development is supposed to look like, but why is it so hard? Why do so many countries get stuck or even go backward? There are a few recurring villains in this story, the big bosses at the end of the level that are incredibly hard to beat. The first and most obvious one is corruption. Corruption is like a cancer on the body politic. It rots institutions from the inside out. When public officials are using their power for private gain, it destroys public trust, distorts economic decisions, and makes the rule of law a complete joke. Why follow the rules when the people in charge are breaking them to get rich? Another major boss is internal conflict. It's pretty hard to build a functioning state when different parts of the country are literally at war with each other. Ethnic, religious, or regional divisions can tear a country apart. When one group feels marginalized or oppressed by the central government, it can lead to separatist movements or civil war. This creates a vicious cycle. The conflict destroys institutions, and the lack of institutions makes it impossible to resolve the conflict peacefully. Look at places like Syria or Yemen. Decades of political development can be wiped out in a matter of months when a country descends into widespread violence. National unity is a prerequisite for a stable political system. Then there's the problem of weak institutions and the legacy of authoritarianism. You can't just flip a switch and create a democracy. Countries emerging from decades of dictatorship often lack the basic building blocks. There's no tradition of free press, no independent judiciary, no experienced political parties. The old guard from the previous regime might still hold significant power, working behind the scenes to sabotage any real change. This is what we saw in many post-Soviet states. They adopted the formal structures of democracy, elections, parliaments, but the old corrupt networks remained in place, creating what some call hollow democracies. Finally, let's not forget about external interference. It's naive to think that countries develop in a vacuum. Powerful foreign governments often have their own interests, and those interests don't always align with the democratic aspirations of the people. During the Cold War, both the US and the Soviet Union propped up friendly dictators all over the world. Today, global powers can still exert influence through economic pressure, military aid, or covert operations, often undermining local democratic movements. Political development has to happen on a global stage where not everyone is playing fair. Okay, so the challenges are huge, but we can't just throw our hands up and say it's hopeless. What are the practical steps, the actual reforms that can push a country in the right direction? First, let's talk about cleaner elections. The integrity of the vote is paramount. This means implementing reforms like creating truly independent electoral commissions, using transparent vote-counting technology, and putting strict limits on campaign financing to reduce the influence of big money. When people believe their vote is secret and that it will be counted fairly, their faith in the entire democratic process gets a massive boost. This is ground zero for building legitimacy. Next up is strengthening the rule of law, and that starts with judicial reform. You need judges who are independent, well-paid, and protected from political pressure. This involves changing how judges are appointed and promoted, making the process based on merit, not political connections. It also means investing in the justice system to make it more accessible and efficient for ordinary citizens. When people see that the courts can deliver justice, even against the powerful, it sends a powerful message that the rules of the game apply to everyone. This is how you build a culture of accountability from the ground up. Another huge piece of the puzzle is civic education. You can't have a functioning democracy if citizens don't understand how it works or what their rights and responsibilities are. This needs to be a priority in schools, teaching young people about their constitution, the importance of voting, and how to engage in civil debate. But it's not just for kids. Public information campaigns and a free, responsible media are crucial for keeping the entire population informed. An educated and engaged citizenry is the best defense against corruption and authoritarianism. They are the watchdogs who hold the government accountable. Ultimately, political development is not a destination. It's a constant, ongoing process of improvement. It requires a commitment to building institutions that are fair, participatory, and accountable. It's a journey that demands resilience from its people and integrity from its leaders. The path is different for every country, as we've seen with India, Pakistan, South Korea, and Tunisia. But the fundamental goal is the same: to create a state that is strong enough to maintain order, but constrained enough to protect freedom. It's essential because, at the end of the day, a well-developed political system is the best tool we have for building a more just, prosperous, and peaceful world for everyone.